Welcome, viewers and listeners, to CHP Talks. We're here with another episode, and I have with me today Josh Alexander. Josh is a 16-year-old Christian high school student in Ontario. He is a proud Canadian and a student walkout organizer. He is best known for his activism in the schools during the Freedom Convoy, but more recently, the issue of male students using female washrooms in school. He attends St. Joseph's Catholic High School in Renfrew, Ontario, but is currently under what they call a temporary exclusion from school for expressing his deeply held Christian beliefs that the privacy of biological female students should not be compromised, that biological males should not be permitted in private spaces like girls' washrooms. Josh, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, there are not many 16-year-old high school students who are at the forefront of the culture wars. We know that we are deep in the culture wars in Canada, but usually we expect adults to step forward and carry the banner. You have been carrying the banner as a 16-year-old, and we thank you for doing that, especially on this critical issue of gender, which is it's a touchy issue, it's sensitive, but as far as I know from what I've heard interviews with you and discussion of the situation, and I know that you are carrying that banner respectfully, but purposefully, speaking from your Christian convictions about biology and gender and morality. So you want to take us back and tell us sort of the sequence of events that led up to your temporary exclusion from St. Joseph's Catholic High School?
Sure. I got suspended approximately 3 times from the public board for organizing Freedom Convoy solidarity walkouts that spread all across Canada. And we got some media attention for that, and I got suspended multiple times, so I decided to switch to the Catholic board this year. And not long into my time there, I was addressed by a few female students, and they were concerned that male students were using the female washrooms at their school. So I took this to the office. It was received negatively. There ended up being a bunch of class debates regarding my opinion on this topic, and there was a lot of shouting. But yeah, I brought a female student to the office to express the same concern I did originally, and they still refused to hear her as well. So at that point, I decided to organize a student walkout, and I advertised it. I posted on all my social media, and about a week leading up to I scheduled the date for November 25th of 2022, and I ended up getting a suspension via email on November 23rd. So they suspended me 2 days before the walkout. In my absence, they went around and intimidated all the students from walking out. Come November 25th, only about 10 students or so walked out with me.
Well, folks, we have had a difficult time having a good connection for the video link for this episode. So we've gone to a telephone link for Josh, and we're going to carry on. Thank you for bearing with us, but it's important that Josh's story get out. And so in spite of the technical difficulties, we're going to make sure that his voice gets heard. Now, we're going to go back to where we left off a few minutes ago, and that was you had called for a student walkout to raise this concern, raise this issue, to protest basically the permission for biological males to be present in the biological female's washroom, which was making some of your fellow students very uncomfortable. But so you called for this walkout, and what happened? I guess take us back 2 days before this walkout. What happened?
Yeah, the walkout was scheduled for November 23rd, or sorry, for November 25th. And on November 23rd, I received a indefinite suspension. The suspension ended up being called to an end after 20 days, but I was suspended for apparently violating the safe schools policy.
All right, interesting. They always come up with good names for these policies, even though it represents something quite different. So you were suspended. So when the day of the walkout came, you couldn't walk out because you weren't in, right?
Yeah, so I went to the road. I brought a sound system, set it up, brought a bit of a stage, and we just set up on the road and waited for people to join us. And we got about 70 supporters from the community. And after, while I was suspended, the principal went class to class and intimidated the students. So in the end, only about 10 students walked out.
Yeah, well, pressure, whether it's from your peers or from those in authority, in a situation, an institution like that, certainly has its impact on people. They don't want to get in trouble and so on. So anyway, so you had some supporters, and you mentioned earlier that there were some also counter protesters that arrived to show their support for having biological males in the girls' washrooms. I guess that's what they must have been supporting, because that's what you were standing against. Tell us about the counter protest.
Yeah, there was a fairly large counter protest. There were protesters were bussed in from Ottawa. There was a workers' union there, ESAC, I believe it was called. There was quite a few counter protesters, and it looked pretty heavily funded.
So they bust in counter protesters. Boy, they must be concerned that your voice is going to change things, because why would they go to the trouble of busing in counter protesters to stand up for the right of biological males to be in biological females' private space? If they weren't concerned, maybe they thought that the truth was going to win, and so they had to try to counter it with their I guess, public pressure. So were there any consequences for the 10 students who walked out that day?
They were told they would not have transportation home. I've heard rumors of other consequences, but I haven't actually confirmed it.
Okay. And so right now you are on this, the suspension was supposed to be over after 20 days. And so what happened at the end of those 20 days?
I got a welcome back meeting. I was told I would be allowed to return under the condition that I was permanently banned from 2 of my classes, and I also wasn't allowed to speak to certain students. I got in contact with the Liberty Coalition of Canada, and thankfully they took on my case. James Kitchen, who is their lawyer, he's been working with me, and the Liberty Coalition has been a third party funding it for me. So you can actually go to their website, and you can see my case description. Some of the communications are public there. There's a donation link. The case is about to get quite expensive. The school just hired a very large law firm it's based in both Ottawa and Toronto, and it's looking like it's going to be a pretty expensive case.
So the school board is using public funding that could be used for education. They're using that to hire an expensive law firm to defend the right of biological males to trespass in the private spaces of biological females. That's very interesting in itself. And your conditions for going back to school were that two of the classes that you had signed up for and a part of your education, you weren't allowed to attend those classes and not allowed to speak to certain other students. That's kind of not really a welcoming back, I would say. That's kind of a hidden message that you're really not welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually what came of that is through communications from my lawyer and the school. The school was informed that I would not be obeying the condition that banned me from two of my classes. So on January 9th, I was scheduled to return. I went to school only in the afternoon because those were the two classes I was banned from. And they had emailed the night before and said I was excluded. And they had concerns about my return. Their actual quote was, "My presence in the building would be detrimental to the physical and mental well-being of the pupils." So they considered me a threat. So they excluded me. I obviously felt this was based purely off of religious discrimination. I decided to attend anyways. And after spending the afternoon at school, I received a trespassing notice and another 5-day suspension.
Wow.
Now, if I return to school, I'll be arrested.
Yeah. So, well, I'm going to tell you, you're in good company as far as the being kept out of the school, because my friend Barry Neufeld has been a school trustee in Chilliwack for 27 years. And because of his position on some of these same issues, they told him, even as a school trustee, that he was not allowed in the schools because they thought it would be a threat to basically the safety of the students there. Well, you've been excluded because they say you're a threat to the physical and mental well-being of certain students. And I have to ask this question: have they ever thought about the physical and mental well-being of the female students who object strenuously to having biological male students in their washroom? I think that, it sort of goes without saying, but apparently it has to be said in these days, that their feelings matter as much, if not more, than the feelings of a minority who think that they should be in the opposite washroom of their biological gender.
Yeah, it's quite disappointing to see the school completely throw out all Christian religious values out the window, just to cater to public funding. They've let the money get the best of them, and it's very apparent.
Yeah, like that's the point. Like, why have a Catholic school or a school dedicated to any religious values if you're just going to take the same stance as the public education system? And certainly any aspect of a Catholic school or Christian school, it should recognize that God said in the beginning he made them male and female. And there's no mention of other gender possibilities. We won't go too far down that rabbit trail at the moment, but the fact that a religiously oriented school would take the same position as secular public institution and follow just for the money is pathetic. It's disgusting, actually. So now you are forbidden from entering the school on pain of being arrested and charged for trespassing. I think somebody's trespassing on your rights, but anyway, what's the next step here?
So I've served my 5-day suspension. I am now waiting out the trespassing notice that goes till January 31st. I expect to be returning to the school for second semester. It looks like I'll lose the 4 credits from this semester, but that's all right.
kind of disappointing to see that that happen, but there's consequences to each fight, and I guess that's one of them right now.
Yeah, there's a cost of obedience, and you've been willing to pay that, and thank you for that. As a young person, that you have seen beyond the short-term benefit of these classes, which certainly I'm not diminishing the value of the classes, but you are seeing beyond that to the value of maintaining human decency and liberty, freedom for people of your generation and the generations to come. So thank you for that. I'll just repeat here you made a plug for Liberty Coalition Canada, and I'm going to repeat that. Wonderful people there at libertycoalitioncanada.com. You can look under the Liberty Defense Fund, and you can see a number of stories there, including this Josh's story. Read the details there. And if you would like to contribute to his defense, you can do that online there, libertycoalitioncanada.com, and help their lawyer, James Kitchen, defend Josh and the rights of these girls to privacy in their private areas, in their private facility. So do you have a court date set? Is there any, is there a timeline for the next court date?
So right now, we're going to be filing a complaint to the Human Rights Tribunal, and we're also appealing the 2 suspensions. The schools right now is denying the fact that I can appeal the suspension using the legal counsel, but that's being worked out right now. And we're gonna just continue the fight, and hopefully some negotiations can be worked out with the school. But right now, it's not looking good.
Well, you have a great lawyer at your back there, and a great organization behind you. We stand with you, and every freedom-loving and biblically oriented person in this country, male and female, should be standing behind you and helping you win this battle for the future of Canada, for the current and following generations. We need to preserve basic human dignity, decency, and freedom. So I do thank you again, Josh, for taking this stand. It's important. Not everyone, young or old, has been willing to step up to the front. You are now in the trenches. You are in the front lines, and we can't plan these things out. Sometimes they come our way, and if we're willing to respond in faithful obedience to the call of God, we do find ourselves in the midst of a battle. This is a battle for really the culture that we appreciate, that Canada has had a free culture and a culture of morality and dignity, and it's being lost, it's being thrown away by those who are catering to, sort of the woke ideology. And it's young people like you and those who stand with you that are going to make a difference. And we believe that your words do have power, do have impact, even if those on the school board or in other woke positions are scoffing and acting like your idea, your thoughts, your beliefs are not important. They're wrong. You're right, and we stand with you. Again, folks, libertycoalitioncanada.com. You can go there to donate, support Josh's case. Josh, please continue to let us know as things unfold. Keep me in the loop so that we can follow you when this goes to court, how this unfolds. Maybe there'll be a repentance and awakening within the school board, the Catholic School Board of Renfrew County. And we certainly hope you have great success. You deserve it. And I think there's a lot of your fellow students that appreciate what you're doing, as well as we that are outside of the school system, past that age. But we certainly appreciate you standing up. Any final words for our audience today?
Yeah, just to both students, parents, members of the church, the average citizen, freedom, when taken for granted, is lost easily. Ronald Reagan once said, "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction," and that's very clear. It shows in our modern society how we've been lucky enough to live in a peaceful society for the last several years, and we've kind of taken it for granted. We've let our freedom slip away. We've exchanged it for safety, and that is the biggest mistake you'll see in every history book over and over again. It's time to use our voices. It's time to speak up against the narrative that is being pushed on us, being pushed on the kids. It's wrong, and I think everybody in this country should be able to recognize that it's wrong. So use your voice. It's powerful. The voice of the dissident is always powerful. Never underestimate the fear of those who rely on falsehoods. They're afraid of what we have to say. They're afraid of the truth. So just speak up.
Amen. Free speech, use it or lose it. And so thank you, Josh, so much for joining us today. Josh Alexander, representing freedom and morality in Renfrew, Ontario. So thanks. And folks, come back next week for another edition of CHP Talks.